Welcome to the BRS Post-Budget webinar for 2026. This year's budget is very much a reform-driven and stability-focused one, aimed at consolidating fiscal discipline under the IMF framework, streamlining tariffs, and accelerating investment-led growth through energy transition, digitization, and trade facilitation. It signals Sri Lanka's gradual shift from stabilization to structural transformation, laying the groundwork for sustainable economic recovery. To begin, our economic and senior research analyst, Maheshi Wattegedara, will take you through the key macro and policy highlights, unpacking the broader economic implications. This will be followed by insights from our research team, who will dive into how the budget impacts industries. We hope you find this session insightful and enjoy the perspective we put together for you. Maheshi, over to you.
Thank you, Nusrat. So before moving on to the market implications, let's see how is the macro backdrop of this budget 2026. So you know that Sri Lanka's economy has now recorded 8 consecutive quarters of growth, with GDP expanding by 4.8% in the first half of 2025, which was above expectations. And this recovery has been broadened across sectors, supported by easier monetary conditions, rise in private sector credit growth, and the continued revival in sectors such as construction, tourism, and business confidence. So after almost a year of deflation, now the inflation turned positive from August 2025, and is now stabilizing towards central bank expectation of 5% target, and that created more favorable environment for consumption and corporate profitability. So under the not only that, if you move on to the interest rates, now under this new overnight policy rate framework, the central bank is following a accommodative monetary policy stance, which ensure liquidity and keeping borrowing costs low, which has also improved the relative attractiveness of equities compared to the fixed income alternatives. And meanwhile, IMF reform agenda remains on track, and with the 5th review scheduled for this December 2025. And with the combination of fiscal discipline, stronger reserves, now which is above $6 billion US, and steady progress in debt restructuring, all these things, with all these things, Sri Lanka has we are entering to this 2026 budget cycle with policy credibility and growth momentum clearly improving. So if we move on, so if we move on to the key budget objectives, if we move on to the key budget objectives, here you can see this time there are 6 main budget objectives, strategic objectives. The first one is sustainable and inclusive economic growth. Then the higher income through export diversification, and ensuring debt sustainability, strengthening production economy, and eradicating rural poverty, and finally the promoting digitalization. And if you move on to the next slide, here you can see the medium-term macro targets. So according to this budget, they mentioned that government is planning to achieve 7% economic growth in medium term in coming years, and tax revenue to GDP target they expect to maintain it above 15% level, and debt to GDP ratio to reduce to 87% by 2030, and So one of the main issue now we are having is this indirect taxes. We collect most of the tax income from indirect taxes. So going forward, the government is planning to change this ratio, direct tax to indirect tax ratio to 40 to 60 ratio. And gross financial need requirement expect to maintain below 13% in medium term, and foreign currency debt servicing around 45%. And moving on to the next slide. Here you can see, this slide shows a summary of all our budget. This is a kind of a comparison with the previous budgets also. So in a summary here, you can see how the revenue numbers and total expenditure and all. So this time, total revenue and grants expect to be 5,300 billion rupees. Majority is coming from tax revenue as usual, with 4,910 billion rupees, and total expenditure this time expect to be 7,057 billion rupees. So if we compare this with last year budget, so this 2026, you can see there is 4% increase in total revenue, and from tax revenue they expect 4% increase in tax revenue compared to previous budget. And if we talk about the total expenditure, this time budget shows 8% increase in total expenditure compared to 2025 budget. However, one of the important thing I want to highlight here is, here you can see how the although there is increase in the revenue, if we go to the numbers as a percentage of GDP, here you can see revenue and grants as a percentage of GDP, as well as this tax revenue to GDP ratio. All these ratios come down compared to the last year budget. However, all the ratios related to revenue has come down compared to the last year, and the budget surplus, budget deficit as a percentage of GDP also increased from 4.5% as a GDP to 5.1% as a GDP this time. So what we identified here is this is mainly because if we compare the last year budget with 2024 numbers, we can see notable increase in tax revenue. Last time they expected around 28% increase in tax revenue, but this time in this budget it is only 4% increase in tax revenue, and we saw that this time there are no any major tax reforms. And any major new taxes this time, there is no any major new taxes. So also if we take the expenditure side, so compared to the last year, last year they expected around 7% increase in total expenditure, but this time they expect around 8% increase in expenditure. So that is the main reason for this. So mainly due to the lower increase in total revenue, percentage increase in total revenue compared to the percentage increase in total expenditure is the main reason for this ratios to come down. Sorry, not ratios, to percentages to come down. So if we go through the main expenditures, especially salaries and wages, this time they expect expenses to increase by 8% for salaries and wages, and for subsidies 5% increase, and public investment this time government expect to increase expenses by 34%. And one of another thing I want to highlight here is when we're talking about the revenue, especially tax revenue. So last time government expected around 4% increase in tax on goods and services compared to 2024. But this time compared to 2025, they expect only a 3% increase in taxes on goods and services. I think this is mainly because last time we saw several taxes imposed, especially last time they expected to collect taxes from vehicle imports. So this time that is not the case. So we can't see any major tax changes. So that's why I think they expect only 3% increase in taxes on goods and services. And also, as I mentioned in the previous slide, government is planning to change this direct to indirect tax ratio to a 40 to 60 ratio. So I think that is also one of the reasons they expect lower tax collection from these indirect taxes from goods and services. And yeah, so if we move on to the next slide. Yeah. Yes. So here, so these are the major revenue reforms in 2026 budget. So we identified 5 major revenue reforms this time. So government is planning tariff modernization, the customs import duty bans will be revised under the national tariff policy to 0%, 10%, 20%, and 30%, replacing the current 0%, 15%, 20% structure. And this will be effective from April 2026. I think all these reforms will effective from April 2026. And next reform is the special commodity levy on coconut and palm oil. So that will be removed and it will replace with 18% VAT rate and 2.5% SSCL. And also, the VAT and SSCL registration threshold will be reduced to 36 million from previous 60 million LKR, broadening the tax base and improving our revenue collection. And another thing is this is regarding the vehicle imports. So SSCL on motor vehicles will now apply at import, manufacture, and sale, while after sale transaction will be exempt, simplifying the tax administration. So this SSCL is already there, but now this will apply from April 2026. This will apply at import, manufacture, or at the sale. And finally, the cess of 100 rupees per kilogram on imported fabric will be replaced with VAT to ensure the fair competition between local and imported products. So those are the major revenue reforms. Yeah. So if we move on to the public sector priorities, so this time we cannot see major salary revisions for the public sector, but we can see they are going to continue the salary increments in phases which they proposed in the last budget 2025. So for that, 110 billion allocated for 2025 salary revisions, second phase effective from January 2026, and 20 million set aside to revise pensions for pre-2020 retires. So that that will be on their 2019 salary structure. And also 500 million rupees for low interest property loans at just 4% for public sector workers. And festival advances increased to 15,000, which is now around 10,000 rupees for all the public sector workers. And yeah, for railway gatekeepers, their minimum allowance will increase to 15,000. For that, they allocated 250 million rupees. And government is planning to recruit around 75,000 new recruiters, including technical, law enforcement, and revenue roles. And this time, government is mainly focused on construction side, road development, and resuming the projects, halted projects. So 342 billion allocated for 2026 road development projects, including funding for rural and bridge projects, express extensions, and feasibility study linking to port access, elevated highway with the Marine Drive extension. Yeah, so those are the public sector priorities. And if we move on to the next slide, yeah. So in this budget, government is prioritizing this investment-driven budget and the investment-driven growth with the support of public sector. So this time there are several proposals for investment promotion and private sector development. So some of them are, the Strategic Development Projects Act and the Port City Commission Act will be amended in early 2026. And there will be a new Investment Protection Act will introduce again in early 2026 to strengthen investor confidence and safeguard investments. And 1,000 million rupees has been allocated for developing service zones linked with the investment areas, investment zones. And there are proposed technical parks in Digana and Norelia, and also they are planning to revitalize existing parks at Kurunagala and Goa. Also, government is planning to introduce residence visa scheme for foreign investors who met certain minimum investment threshold or in priority sectors or in any eligible projects. And they are planning to introduce a single window mechanism for to get the approval for investment proposals which comes through BOI. And also they are planning to allocate there has been allocated 100 million rupees to establish central digital land information system, and 2,500 million rupees has been allocated to develop national single window framework for trade in 2026. And also, finally, a new committee has been appointed to review existing free trade agreements and to negotiate new trade agreements to expand the market access. So those are the major proposals regarding investment promotion and private sector development. And yeah, so those are the things I want to highlight regarding the macro economic perspective in this budget. And before moving to the equity market, let's quickly see what happened with the 2025 budget so far. So yeah, if we move on to the next slide. Okay, so here you can see so we achieved almost all revenue and expenditure targets so far during the 9 months. So I'm not going to dwell too much on this. So total revenue and grants reported as 3,835 billion rupees in the first 9 months of 2025, achieving 77% of the target. And tax revenue also achieved 78% of the target. And for expenditure side, total expenditure reported as 4,276 billion, which is 59% of annual estimate. And budget deficit for the first 9 months reported as 441 billion rupees, which is sharply down from 970 billion rupees in the corresponding period of last year. And if we move on to the next slide, here you can see what are the things we missed. So mainly we achieved, as I mentioned, we achieved almost all revenue targets, but we missed this excise duty target from cigarette. So this is mainly due to the decline in volume offsets higher rates, and also withholding tax. So that is mainly due to the that is due to the low rate interest rate environment. So, and also despite this increase in withholding tax from 5% to 10%, we can see low attraction towards fixed income due to this low interest rate environment. So those are the things I want to highlight regarding macroeconomy. So with that, I think we can move on to the implications of equity market. Over to you, Hesha.
Yes, thank you very much, Maheshi. Good day to everyone, every listeners of ours to joining us with joining with us for today. So, leading into the budget, equity investors were not only keen on finding out the implication, also trying to find out how this budget 2026 actually impact the equity market. So having navigated through the reconstruction phase post-economic crisis, we believe that Sri Lanka's economic rebound, supported by political stability under the new government, has positioned the stage for us to, allow into the next phase of growth cycle. So as Mahesh pointed out, in terms of economic indicators and how these are going to impact the overall economic conditions, we believe, according to the budget 2026 proposal that we have seen, it comes as broadly positive for the equity market, backed by few factors. So the main factor is that, over the past few years, what we have seen is there is expenditure curtailment because of the fiscal discipline that we badly needed. So that, most of the projects were halted, and, the expenditures on public investment was somewhat halted. Now that we have seen there is a growth in public investment expenditure, and there is a lot of funds allocated to these projects to drive the economic growth and also the infrastructure that needed for our economy. So that will actually lead into the private sector involvement and the business opportunities coming from there. And also overall, when the economic growth is there, the consumer disposable income and the consumer spending, that will have an overall effect on the aggregate demand. So we believe that is quite positive for the overall equity market. You need the demand angle as well as the growth perspective. So then the next most important point is that, yes, there were tax reforms, but there were no new taxes. So that, the tax policy is somewhat stable, and there were no shocks for the equity listed companies in terms of new taxes coming into play. And also in terms of as an asset class, equity capital gains on equities continue to remain exempt, and the withholding tax that were there in the dividends, it will continue to be there. It will be similar. So that the government plan of broad basing in the tax base or the tax net to manage the fiscal discipline, we believe that is quite crucial, so that that will give a perspective that in terms of tax policy also there are no impacts on the equity market. That is quite a positive for the market. And then of course it was suggested that naturally when there are most of these projects kicking in, and when the demand kicking in, you will naturally see that inflation will gradually picks up, over to the crowding out effect. But still, we believe that it will be on a manageable range where the current interest rates will continue to remain low. So the equity market has been quite bullish, and the investor confidence and the investor attractiveness was there for the overall market, and we believe that that will continue to be there for the at least for the short term, with how the government is planning on growing the economy. So although these are positives, if it all depends on the execution and the implementation, and how these the output comes as we move ahead. So one of the risks that we will have to look at any kind of fiscal slippage. If the discipline is not there, we might go back to the past routines where we have felt some of the bad consequences. And also, if there are any changes to these stable policies, which feel unlikely at this point of time, and also again depend on how quickly we can fast track some of these proposals, like the digitalization and those angles, how quickly we can implement these into action. So the sectors that most of the sectors stand to benefit out of this budget 2026. However, we believe the hefty allocation made into the public investment, that is likely to benefit the construction and related companies or related industries, and also the renewable energies according to Sri Lanka's plan of going into more renewable sources, and the consumer sectors benefiting from the overall increase in disposable income. And then there were proposals related to the agriculture and the dairy business, as well as coconut cultivation plants. And then of course any kind of growth is funded through banks and NBFI, that we believe will credit demand will come into the sector. And also there were plans of supporting and boosting tourism sector, telecommunication. So those are the mostly the sectors that tend to benefit. Having said that, not all come as winners. There could be some mildly negative implication on some of the sectors, maybe some of the salary hikes taken on the plantation, and some of the implication of tax reforms on the pricing that mechanism of some of the plantation companies, and also the impact on the social security contribution levy coming into play for some of the vehicle dealers. So those are the areas probably you might have to watch out for. So having ascertain our overall view on the equity market, let's take a quick dive on most of the impacted sectors of from the budget 2026. So we'll start on the most prominent sector, the construction sector. Over to you, Iranga, to take from here.
Thank you, Heshan. Just like Heshan mentioned, FT allocation has been made to the public investment. So among the public investment, if we consider about the total capital expenditure allocation, the amount allocated for the Ministry of Transport, Highways, and the Civil Aviation Ministry, there is a considerable capital allocation we can see. So that is mainly because of the amount allocated for the expressways construction. So that has been a trend, like within the past 5 to 6 years budget, we have seen that hefty allocation for this segment, and the more hefty allocation for the transportation segment. And that transportation segment allocation was mainly high because of this expressway construction. So you can see the this year too, for road development, government has allocated for the allocated 342 billion. So that is a massive amount. And we can identify the Central Expressway Phase 1 construction. Even now it is commenced, Kadawatha Meerigama section. So the allocated 66.15 billion allocated for the 2026. So other than that, Central Expressway phase 3, this Potuhara Galagedara section, government has allocation 10.5 billion. And other than that, road development for the land acquisition, the government has allocated 1 billion to the land acquisition of the Kurunagala Damul Expressway. So in addition to this expressway, government also allocated 24,000 million for the rural road development and the another significant amount for the bridges development. So if we consider about the beneficiaries of this constructions are the Access Engineering PLC, will be touched by the Mahesh in next slide. And the other than that, the material construction sector related materials, just like Tokyo, ACL, Sierra Cables, and Kalni Cables, especially because of these road development projects, there is a need for the lighting purposes. So for that, the cable segment definitely will be benefited. So moving on to the next slide, Mahesh, you can take from here.
Yes, thank you, Ranga. So let me take you through access engineering PSA. So since this budget is more focused on construction sector, we thought it is important to take you through AEL, impact on AEL. So when we're talking about access engineering, you know that they have several business areas, including civil engineering, construction material, mechanical engineering, commercial warehouses, offices, condominium properties, etc. So in here, I'm going to talk about mainly about the construction sector related segments. So especially this time, if you go through the budget numbers, you will see the government is allocated considerable amount from the total capital expenditure to this Central Expressway section 3. So that allocation is around 10.5 billion. So they're planning to, in 2026, they are planning to complete this Rambukkana Galagedara section. So this is a project already under access engineering. So we believe that that will benefit the resumption of this project will benefit for access engineering in 2026 especially. And also I think government is planning to complete from Galagedara to Kandy also in after this phase. So that will be that will support to medium term revenue visibility of access engineering. In addition to that, government is more focusing on road and rural infrastructure. I think I mentioned that in the macro part as well. So 342 billion allocated for this rural road infrastructure development, including 24 billion for rural roads and 2.5 billion for rural bridges. So again, access engineering is a company who has experience and they have their operations in all these areas, developing roads, bridges, and all. So we believe that they have active tender pipeline in FY 26-27 period, and with the integrated material supply offer a strong competitive edge for access engineering. So apart from that, they also involve in this port and airport construction side. So port access elevated highway phase 2, they are for this project, they are doing a feasibility study, and also government has planned to expand Bandaranaike International Airport. So all these projects will have new opportunities for access engineering, especially for civil and mechanical engineering units. Also, they have subsidiaries such as CPM Sri Lanka and Access Engineering Port Services, which are well placed to capture contracts like this. And also they have this construction material and plant operation. So we believe that that section also will benefit with the revival in construction sector. And if we speak about the broad outlook of access engineering. So revivaling this construction sector and infrastructure development will likely to drive access engineering over coming years, improving capacity utilization across construction and material segments. Yeah, so that is the brief update about access engineering. Maybe we can move on to the next slide.
Thank you, Maheshi. So next we can move into the key highlights from the housing and urban development section of the 2026 budget. So this year, the government has given priority to housing, focusing on low-income families, urban regeneration, and resettlement of vulnerable communities. In total, more than 40 billion rupees has been allocated to continue and expand ongoing housing programs. Basically, this includes funding for low-income housing under the Place of Your Own, a Beautiful Life initiative, the urban regeneration projects in Colombo and suburbs, estate worker housing with Indian assistance, and housing for disaster-affected and internet displaced families. So, the overall aim is to improve living standards, reduce urban congestion, and support inclusive social development by providing safe and affordable homes across the country. So from a capital market perspective, these allocations are highly positive for the construction and building material sector. So we can expect stronger demand for cement, cables, and construction materials, which directly benefits Tokyo Cement, ACA Cables, Sierra Cables, and counters like Central Industries. And also the increased public spending on housing also support related industries such as tiles, fitting, and paints, creating a steady flow of domestic orders for 2026. So basically, the government's continued investment in housing and urban development not only uplift social welfare, but also provide a solid medium-term growth opportunities for the local construction, value chain, and listed material suppliers. So that's all about it. Over to you, Bineth.
Thank you, Asela, and good morning to everyone. The 2026 budget places a strong focus on expanding clean water access and irrigation across the country, and around 85.7 billion rupees has been allocated for water and community projects in 7 districts, including 1 billion rupees for new supply systems in Amatale and Lunugambehera, and another 91.7 billion rupees is set aside for major irrigation work with Mundiniyaru, Kumbukanoya, and Talpitikal reservoirs, with also 8.35 billion to improving small tanks and canals. In addition, 6,500 million rupees is allocated for restoring key canal systems such as Senanayaka Samudra Galloya, and 5,000 million for the Lower Malwatoya project to enhance water access and flood control in Mana. And this whole segment is quite positive for the PVC piping sector. Companies like Central Industries have already secured a large portion of the government tenders this year. Sind has secured 91% of pipeline tenders from the government so far, and it was only 69% in 2024. So they will position to benefit directly from the continuous pipeline of projects. They've got experience, capacity, and the product range suited for large-scale government infrastructure work. Among the listed pipe manufacturing companies, Rich is also involved in the PVC piping and fittings under Arbitrec. So this will level of this. So with the level of investment, demand for their products should also rise in water supply. And as Maheshi said before, access engineering will benefit on the civil engineering side, since they've actively engaged in canal restoration, dam work, and irrigation infrastructure. So the 2026 budget's water and irrigation allocations create a strong growth environment for these listed companies with potential volume expansion and long-term order flow from the public sector. So that's about water supply and irrigation. So Shalini can take it from here.
Yes, so the next proposal that was put forward in the budget is the removal of the special commodity levy on imported palm oil and coconut oils. So this is likely to create some mixed impacts. So what is currently happening is that a special commodity levy of 150 rupees per kilo is imposed on imported coconut oil, while imported palm oil is subject to a sale of 275 rupees per kilo. So this will be removed from April 2026 onwards, and the general tax structure that the local manufacturers are subject to, which is a VAT of 18% and a social security contribution levy of 2.5%, will be implemented for the imported cooking oils as well. So more or less, this creates a level playing field for the imports as well as the local players. However, how we view is that despite being subject to VAT and SSCL, still with the removal of the special commodity levy, the imported oils could be cheaper, and in order to compete with it, the margins that the local manufacturers have now. So under the current pricing mechanism, they take into account the price of the imported oils, which consists of this is special commodity levies. So local players can keep a higher margin. So with the removal of this, the margins of local manufacturers will see some pressure owing to the price competition. But on the other hand, manufacturers, food manufacturers, or as you know, palm oil is used in the production of these soaps, shampoos, and so on. So those manufacturers who use imported oil as a raw material could see a benefit from reduced input costs. So that is why I mentioned that there is a mixed outlook. So those who use palm oil as a raw material, such as CCS, Hemas, and all, could see a benefit in terms of the raw material cost. But the local palm oil producers could see that there is somewhat of a erosion of their margins as they have to compete with cheaper imports. So moving on to the next slide. Yes, the plantation sector wage increase was announced by the president, where the minimum wage will be increased to 1,550 from January 2026. So the basic wage will see an increase of 200 rupees, which has to be borne by the plantation companies. And the government will pay an additional 200 rupees as a daily attendance allowance. So that brings the total daily wage to 1,750. So this measure would escalate the cost of production of the plantation companies, since it doesn't really the higher wages are not going to be coupled with their productivity improvements. So the cost of production, increase in the cost of production is going to squeeze the margins of plantation companies. So this will be more severely felt in the tea sector, tea and rubber sectors, which are very labor intensive, and the prices also, on the other hand, are very competitive in the global market. So further, the president gave a sort of an indication of a warning that the unproductive plantations agreements of the RPCs will not be renewed if they are unproductive when they will be reviewed in 2041. So somewhat of a warning was given in order to make these plantation lands utilized more effectively and productively. So overall, a wage increase would be way down on the plantation counters, but on the other hand, government says that they will also contribute 200 rupees in terms of the allowance. But there could be certain delays and potentially some cash flow issues and all that with the government taking up this daily allowance. So with that, we can move on to the next slide. So there were certain proposals which are positive to the overall agriculture, dairy, and the coconut plantation side. So in terms of the agriculture side, there are some proposals which are encouraging for the overall agriculture sector in terms of concessionary agricultural loans, improving the irrigation systems, measures to ensure a higher guaranteed price for paddy, and improving the storage facilities of crops and so on. So overall, the measures that are encouraging the agriculture sector would see that the farmers farmers get into the agricultural activities more, which in turn benefits the agricultural input providers, the fertilizers, the agriculture equipment, and so on. So companies such as CIC, Agstar, Demo, and Haley's in the listed company space see some benefit from this. In terms of dairy, the National Dairy Production Program is designed to meet 75% of Sri Lanka's domestic daily requirement by 2030. Currently, it's at about 40%. So even in the past budgets, I think almost all the recent budgets, there were allocations towards improving the dairy sector. How much of it has been implemented and the success of it, I'm not certain. But generally, if this goes through, it could mean a potential import substitution for powdered milk by liquid milk, and LMF, Cargill's, whatever, and so on stands as some potential beneficiaries overall with the growth in the dairy industry. And in terms of coconut, so the coconut production has been challenged, and the Northern Coconut Triangle was introduced, and in the budget, it is proposed that the Northern Coconut Triangle will be further expanded to boost the coconut production. And also a structured program is proposed for coconut growers who own less than 5 acres. So overall, these measures are planned to achieve the expected export targets. So the coconut-based product exporters stands to benefit from these proposals, although it may not be a very short-term affair. So moving on to the next slide. Yes, so overall, we are seeing certain budget proposals that could aim at a boost in the consumer spending, which is positive for overall consumer sector. So although new salary revisions were not announced, we're seeing that the second phase of the revisions which were announced from last year's budget in terms of the public sector salary hikes and the pension revisions to come in at different parts of 2026. So we saw increase in the festive allowances and so on. So these measures overall support a recovery in the consumer demand and a broader workforce participation, where the government aims to improve the female workforce participation in particular. So these could sustain the household spending power, which in turn benefits the consumer sector. So a stronger retail, FMCG, and healthcare demand could be witnessed. And we also saw many proposals encouraging the digital economy. So as people are more tech savvy and digital savvy and moving into cashless payments, online transactions, these in the long run would benefit digital platform providers such as PicMe. And also on the healthcare side, we saw infrastructure improvement projects, several upgrades, relocations of hospitals, improvements of hospitals, and also national cardiac unit was proposed. So overall, the government spending on healthcare would benefit the medical device and other suppliers such as Sunshine, CIC, HEMAS, and DEMO could benefit from these spending. So with that, we can move on to the next slide. Yes, over to you, Nuzi.
Thank you, Shalini. So moving on with renewable energy, I think there was there was quite a lot of mention about renewable energy and improving infrastructure and so on. So not only this government, I think successive governments even before this have been speaking about the drive to improve the renewable energy. That is basically the way forward. So I think countless times we have seen the media and even different political parties mentioning a 70% renewable energy target by 2030. So this government is no different. They want to move towards that target. So in order to do that, certain reforms are needed, and that is what I think currently they are doing with this new Electricity Act. So it is needed, which will enable more private participation. It will unbundle the CEB for more productive generation. So that is also currently happening. And this will also encourage competitive bidding for renewable projects. So this is all in terms to move towards the 70% renewable energy target by 2030. But in order to do this, it's also to emphasize here that as much as we need these renewable projects, it is also important that we do support grid and transmission upgrades. So without that, that needs to be enhanced to facilitate renewable energy development going forward. So in terms of the utility or the listed utility space, we have mentioned here that almost all renewable energy companies will be key beneficiaries. So when you do have transparent policies, it does strengthen the confidence of investors and better capital inflows. We have seen faster project approvals and clear transparency even in terms of tariffs. So that's a good thing, which will also improve earning visibility eventually. So they have also spoken about this Energy Transition Act. So the main aim is here that cleaner energy will also help boost the transportation sector in utilizing more cleaner energy, and will also to boost efficiency and attract investments going forward. So overall, they have spoken a lot about certain projects, certain big projects, how it has been awarded, and they will do everything possible to move towards a more renewable economy or renewable energy, cleaner energy going forward. So I think that's all about the renewable energy space. I think we can move on to the next slide.
So if we consider about the yesterday budget, in the budget speech yesterday, the president highlight the export diversification as a key national priority. This is particularly relevant since apparel export still dominates Sri Lanka's merchandise export. So if we consider about the contribution for the merchandise export coming from the apparel is nearly 40%. So so making the sector highly exposed to the external shocks. Even we have realized it even from this USA tariff situation, where most our exports are depending on the apparel, and even if we consider about the market, most of our exports are depending on the USA market. So to address this, several strategic initiatives were announced. An expert committee will be appointed to reassess existing trade agreements and work on new free trade deals and creating opportunities for broader market access. If we consider about the current free trade agreements, the one we have with India is not highly beneficial for us. Most of the time, industry experts are highlighted that we need to negotiate more, and we need more free trade agreements for diversify our export earnings. So at the same time, a new tariff policy and enhanced financial support schemes are also planned to encourage development of this new export-oriented products and services. And most of the time, these export-oriented products are also using imported raw materials. So sometimes there are so many tariffs and para tariffs when they are importing these required materials. So that is also impacting into this export-related counters. So furthermore, through the Export Development Board strengthened programs, so covering trade fairs, product certification, and digital marketing, aims to boost the global presence of Sri Lankan export. Together, these in addition to that, there was a proposal to remove the LKR 100 rupees per kg cess on the imported fabric from April 2026, replaced by the VAT, and aims to create a level playing field between imported and locally product fabric. So this could be impacted in several ways for the local manufacturers. If the let's say if the local manufacturer completely manufacturing their fabric internally, just like what TJL and MGT is doing, they are internally producing their fabric by their own, just importing the cotton materials. So those manufacturers could be benefit from that. But if some manufacturer is using the imported fabric to manufacture their apparels and relating in and exporting to other countries, sometimes this might be negatively impact. So that's why even in the impact we have highlighted that mixed to positive impact to the apparel sector and the export segment. So though we have mentioned TJL, MGT, and Heller here, so other export counters such as deep products and the Haley's export also could benefit from these policy measures. So that's all about this export strategy, export proposal. So we can move into the next slide.
Thank you, Iranga. So moving on to this national tariff policy. So basically, in simple terms, what the government is trying to do is eliminate para tariffs and make the tariff system more simple. So I think this has also been on the cards several times over and stated by the IMF as well. So up to now, we haven't seen Sri Lanka does have quite a bit of para tariffs, and up to now, although the IMF have mentioned it several times over, we haven't seen any removal per se as of now. So going forward, you can see here there was a band of 0%, 15%, and 20%. That will now be revised to 0%, 10%, 20%, and 30%. So honestly speaking, they have just mentioned about these tariffs. They haven't mentioned which sectors are going to fall into which band of this tariff. So there is no clarity on that as yet. But just for argument's sake here, we have taken the tile market and also the aluminium market. So we have just given for visualization purposes, basically we have given 3 scenarios. If currently it's taxed at 20%, the imported tiles, that is the general duty and not the cess, right? So if that moves to 30%, then we will probably move, the local tile manufacturers may get protected. But having said that, if the cess is currently about 35%, if that is removed, then I think if you take the overall tax, probably again it will be neutral. So we are yet to see that. So I think in terms of remaining at 20%, also I think if the cess is removed or reduced, then I think still again the imported tile manufacturers should benefit. But if they do put some protection in terms of, I think what the local manufacturers also have been lobbying for, is the protection policy or the anti-dumping policy. So if that comes into place, then this band increases, or even if it remains at 20%, that will be, in terms of policy shifts, more than tariffs, they will make it slightly difficult for the importers. So still, we don't have any clarity on that. If they do bring down the ban to 10%, obviously, lower import duty. And again, the imported tile manufacturers will benefit, and there will be some margin pressure coming in for the local manufacturers. So eventually what will happen is, what they're saying is that, there should be a level playing field. So the market should determine the prices on supply and demand. So probably going forward, I think even the local manufacturers will have to come into play, and probably the prices may have to be re-looked at in order to compete in this environment. So we don't know, like I said, which band this will fall into. So we'll have to wait and see. Either way, this can be a small explanation going towards that band when it is implemented. Then we can go into the next slide.
Thank you, Nusi. So the government has expressed its strong intention to increase digital literacy and drive the country toward a more technology-enabled economy. So this initiative is part of a broader vision to build a modern, inclusive, and innovation-led digital economy for Sri Lanka's future, especially by 2030. To support this transformation, LKR 3 billion has been allocated to encourage investment in next generation digital infrastructure, including artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and data center. So these measures are aimed to strengthening the digital backbone of the economy and fostering innovation across multiple sectors. A key milestone in this journey will be the launch of Sri Lanka's first digital identity card in the third quarter of 2026, which is expected to simplify public service delivery and enhance accessibility for citizens. So then that the government also plans to enable all government transaction through online payment platforms, improving convenience and transparency. From 1st of January 2026, service fees charged by government institution will be waived off for the digital transaction. For this purpose, the government has allocated 1 billion to cover related costs such as system upgrades, transaction expenses, and public awareness initiatives. So furthermore, to enhance further these digital payments, government has decided to for the QR code transaction, which below rupees 5,000 will be exempted from service charge, encouraging the broader use of this digital payment. So we are somewhat lagging behind comparing with our neighbor countries like India. They are far ahead with this QR code transaction payment. So in addition to that, government also further proposals also introduced incentives for international data centers, for rupees 500 million allocated to attract investment, and digital technology tax concession is there for the new communication towers, will receive a 5-year tax break, and the simplified approvals for this telecommunication related infrastructure facilities when they are constructing. So in addition to that, broadband vouchers for the low income and ASFASUM beneficiary children will receive vouchers for educational purposes. So all of these proposals will benefit the directly benefit these counters like Dialog, Axiata PLC and Sri Lanka Telecom. So because when the digital transactions are increasing, when the digital initiatives are increasing, the consumption of these internet facilities and other telecommunication facilities will really high. So that will directly benefit this Dialog and SLT. So Maheshi, you can take here from you can take over.
Yeah. So let's move on to the to see how this SSCL will impact on vehicle industry. So it's like this. So this SSCL or Social Security Contribution Levy is already there in this for this vehicle imports. So basically the vehicle import related VAT and import duties include this CIF duty rates based on CIF value and excise duty and port and airport development levy and 2.5% SSCL based on again CIF value of the vehicle. So it is already there, but there are certain loopholes in collecting this tax. So that's why this time in this budget, government decided to, they proposed to apply this SSCL at the time of import, manufacture or sale of the vehicles while being exempted at the after sale stages. This will be effective from April 2026. So as I said, their main aim is to streamline the tax collection of SSCL from vehicle imports. So if we talk about the impact on listed counters, so I think as listed companies, they are already paying this SSCL. So we don't see any major significant impact on the on these counters, but there might be there could be slightly rise in the effective cost of vehicles at the point of entry, and also in short term, so in long term, we in medium to long term, we see kind of a neutral to mildly negative impact for these counters. But in short term, I think with the expectations to price hike in next year, there might be increase in demand during in short term. So basically, we here we found counters such as UML, Satsumo Motors, Demo, Ashok Leyland, SHL, and Aban, also including JKH, BYD. We can have kind of a neutral or mildly negative impact in medium term from this SSCL tax imposition. So yeah, as I mentioned, so again, this is not a new thing, but it is already there. So they are planning to streamline the process of collecting this tax. So yeah, that's about it. So I think we can move on to the next slide.
So now Sri Lanka is aiming to achieve USD 8 billion tourism revenue and 4 million arrivals by 2030. Now we are almost reaching to pre-COVID level tourist arrivals, but still in terms of tourism revenue, still I feel we need to improve it more and furthermore, because in parallel to the tourism arrivals, we are not seeing that much increase of tourism revenue. So the government has focused this tourism segment highly in this year as well. You can see not only the rural tourism, the urban government also focused on the urban tourism. You can see the government has allocated 2.5 billion to develop the Bere Lake, and to enhance the workforce development. Government has initiated several training programs for that, allocated 500 million. So to facilitate the increasing arrivals, so government also intend to enhance the air transport infrastructure. For that, expansion of Bandaranaike International Airport expected to recommence this development program. In addition to that, in addition to the international air transport, government also focusing on this inbound air transport. For that, Ingurankode Airport completion, development of Sigiri, Trincomalee and Jaffna airports. For that, government has allocated 1 billion. Even in the last year, we have seen this certain amount was allocated for the regional tourism development. Even in this year, we can see development for the development of Aputale, Beregala, and Indigasinna was proposed as key tourist destination. So in addition to that, government also decided to development of 900 plus government-owned bungalows and resort to enhance this underutilized asset. So if we consider about the beneficiaries of these proposals, we can consider all the tourism related counters such as KHL, Ahun, Hotel Sigiri, and all the related tourism sector counters. So, Eshan, you can take over.
Yes, thank you very much, Iranga. So, we have, heard about the, the macro angle and how it's, positive for most of the construction related industries and other sectors, and overall positive for the market. So, when a budget is more growth oriented, and when there are significant investments on capital projects, that leads room to business opportunities. So these business opportunities, at least mostly in the private sector, is funded through the financial sector, mostly banks. So in that sense alone, you could see how this budget 2026 is positive for the banking sector. And there were several reforms or proposals given by Mr. President. There were several credit collateral pre-credit guarantees, interest subsidies, and concessional loan schemes, targeting some of the SMEs and youth, youth and the women empowerment. We believe this will be mostly be channeled through state banks, but still, if you take at the overall budget proposals, although, though directly mentioning about the banking sector, you could see the credit demand, picking up, and that credit demand will be financed through banking sector. And then also the salary revisions and some of these, expenditure allocation stimulating the economy will lead to higher consumer spending and the consumer disposable income, again, impactful about the borrowers of the banking sector. And then also there was this reform that, they have reduced the threshold for minimum, the minimum threshold taken as a investment or capital allowance. So previously it was USD 3 million. Now even the smaller capital expenditures up to starting from USD 250,000 could be potentially be allowed or taken as a enhanced capital allowance, so that some of the companies will be prompted or stimulated into investing some of the capacity expansion. So that will again be financed through some of the borrowings coming from banking sector. So overall, you can see that the overall budget 2026 being positive for the banking sector. So all the listed counters tend to benefit on a disproportionate basis. So in our view, we tend to highlight our stock in focus where we have more understanding about the listed banking space. So those were the stocks mentioned here. But overall, overall terms, the overall banking sector should benefit from budget 2026 forecast of this growth, economic growth. And also in NBFI, of course, the how this SSCL impact from March 2026 going to impact the vehicle pricing and how that could lead to leasings and all. It's a bit of a mixed bag. Probably, initially, as Mahesi also pointed out, maybe there is a little bit of a, surge in the slight demand, expecting maybe the prices would go up, so that, maybe there will be some sort of a demand kicking in initially. And probably even if it is the case, it should normalize because already we have seen quite a bit of vehicle sales happening. So overall, anyway, the pent-up demand was felt with the banks and the NBFI sector in terms of leasing, and that was anyway expected to slow down and normalize. And we believe, regardless of the SSCL impact, that is to be the case. And also for NBFI, momentum has been quite strong and positive. You have seen the aggressive lending of most of the NBFI companies. That is because the current economic environment is such that the overall financial sector is being more open to lending and in terms of driving the economy. So we don't see that slowing down, at least from the normalized standards. Of course, from the robust growth or the exponential growth that they have seen, it is bound to normalize. But on a more organic sense, we don't expect any kind of a contraction coming in it, because the overall growth oriented budget is positive for the NBFIs even. So that you will see auto loans, the gold loans, and the micro loans that the NBFI sector has been focusing, that is expected to maintain. So that again, all the listed NBFIs, because any kind of growth oriented budget is you without the support of the financial sector, it's hard to do. And when there are indications like these, where the projects are resuming, and you can see this the expectation or the growth proposals, anyway the banks and the NBFIs will come into picture in order to support that and also to benefit from the renewed demand. So the listed NBFI should benefit. So again, our stock in focus, you have the Alliance Finance, and then the Commercial Credit, Central Finance, CDB, LB Finance, and LC Finance, Singer Finance, Valuable Finance, and TLC. Those are mostly our covered focus. And so all of them have done well, and expected to continue to do well, at least for the short term, how things are panning out. So that's brings to the end of our budget presentation. In summary, budget 2026 marks a clear pivot from fiscal tightening before to a growth-led recovery, with strong signals for investors, businesses, and infrastructure development. So what are the key positives for the equities? Like I mentioned before, it's just the fact that we are more focusing towards growth, and there has been the projects are coming in, and also we are seeing that all these economic activities are picking up. So we expect this is the early phase of our next growth cycle. And also there are no major taxes, no new taxes. All of them are tax reforms and broadening the tax base. So that is quite positive in terms of tax stability. And there are no added implication mostly for the equity market. And also with the inflation being under, intact, we expect the interest rates to remain low. So that is going to be continually be favorable for equity as an investment avenue. And also the fact that, most of the sectors out of the listed space tend to benefit. So you will see that earnings growth coming in so that the forward valuation will be attractive. So that's what we have to look at, the overall future outlook and how the forward earnings can be taken as from the current market valuations. And then although we are being positive and, the budget is painting a positive story, there could be execution risk. However, the message from this budget is clear. The growth is back on the agenda and the market is paying attention. So the real test will be the implementation. But if policy meets execution, Sri Lanka not entering its next growth cycle, and also not only entering its next growth cycle. It's time to position our stand on the overall economy cycle as well. So hope that was informative and useful for our listeners, and we hope to bring back more upsides on current and future developments. So thank you very much for listening.